Brilliant. Yay! So hello everybody, welcome to this evening's webinar. So we're talking about cravings, and I don't know about for you, but we are, cravings can pretty much rule our lives. Sometimes, when you feel like you've got these cravings, it can be really hard to overcome them. So what I'd like to do in this evening's webinar is really to break down what exactly is going on in our brain chemistry, in our which neurotransmitters are involved with cravings, the different signaling pathways that are involved, also with our hormones, because we've got hunger hormones, we've got satiety hormones, we've got insulin, which is another hormone, and these are all playing different roles in our body to keep us full, because we've got our hunger hormones that require us to eat, satiety hormones that help us to know when to stop, and then we've got these cravings, which are actually a different system. So it's just really interesting, I think, to break it down to what's going on in the body, and then obviously I'm going to help you to know the tools so that we can help to overcome and kind of hijack this loop that can quite often happen around cravings. So it'd be interesting as well to see where your cravings are, which ones. I mean, most common cravings are for sugar, I'd have to say, and that is what I think about 90% of my clients that I help with cravings are usually struggling with sugar cravings, but there are also other cravings such as for salt, or perhaps for milk or cheese and things like that. So I'll help you to break down what that might mean, and then hopefully that gives us a bit of empowerment to help overcome these cravings. So a little bit about me, for those who don't know me, I'm a nutritional therapist. My name's Lucie Simon. I'm the founder of Feel Good Food, and I'm a BANT registered nutritional therapist. I've been practicing for about 10 years now. I'm also a recipe developer and a retreat chef on our lovely retreats, yoga retreats with my sisters, chill out retreats. So I have lots of experience in this area. My speciality is hormones and navigating the perimenopause and menopause, because I'm going through it myself. And that's why these kind of, when we're talking about cravings, when we're talking about hunger, hormones are going to come into it. So I'm coming at it from that lens, really. So that's a bit about me. What we're going to cover in this evening's short webinar is really the difference between hunger and cravings, to know these different pathways and what might be going on, and how to infiltrate them and influence them, and what influences are affecting us. And then we're going to explore the common root causes of our cravings. And then I'll give you some of those tips to help to crush the cravings. You're welcome to take notes, and also I'll send you out this recording afterwards if you'd like more information, because it might be a lot to take in to begin with. So first of all, we're going to be looking at the difference between hunger and cravings. And as I said, there are these different pathways that be going on. So first of all, let's break down the hunger and satiety hormone circuit. So when we think of hormones, we're just going to start really simply. Hormones are chemical messengers, okay, that are sent throughout the body to signal different needs or different requirements. So we do have hormones that influence our appetite and that influence our satiety. You may have heard of these already. We've got the hunger hormone, which is called ghrelin, which almost sounds like a gremlin, doesn't it? And as you know, if you get that kind of hungry, it's the rumbling in our tummy feeling. That's the ghrelin. It's the messages from our stomach going up to our brain in sending signals that we need to eat. It's our hunger hormone. And then we've got leptin, which is the opposite of that, which is our satiety hormone. So that tells the body that we are full, and that actually comes from our fat cells up to our brain, to let our brain know, yep, we've got enough, we're full. Now, when I say that, that can hopefully just give you a little tip as to when we're talking about when these hormones go out of balance, what might be happening. Because if you've got the fat cells telling the brain that there's enough, we don't need any more, but then you think of actually when most of our Western diet is, we're looking at lots of trans fats, lots of unhealthy fats in the diet, that can have an influence in these signaling pathways, and maybe those messages aren't getting to the brain that it's enough, you're full. So that's why sometimes you can get these kind of, the hormones can be a little bit off balance, and that's what we would look at root cause. If there's anything going on with the hunger hormones or satiety hormones, we'd look to address that. The other hormones that influence our feeding or our kind of need for food are our blood sugar hormones, such as insulin and incretin. And again, these are kind of like antagonistic, they work together. and they work, really our insulin is like our fat storage hormone. So when we eat food, we get blood sugars raise, and insulin is released from the pancreas. So this is kind of like either we use that the blood sugar as energy in the body, and if we have too much sugar in the blood, then insulin stores that excess sugar as fat in the glycogen stores. And so that's why, again, we know with insulin, if it gets a little bit out of balance, or if you have perhaps if that signaling pathway is overwhelmed, then you can look to going down the line of kind of diabetes, because the insulin becomes less sensitive. So we've got like the insulin pathway just gets clogged up, and then the insulin doesn't send a message anymore that we don't need any more sugar. So it either keeps the sugar in the blood, which then raises the possibility of diabetes. You become insulin resistant, which is where our blood sugars are up and down. So yeah, those are our hormones that come into play, and the incretin is our glucose tolerance hormone as well. So we want to make sure that all of these hormones are working, functioning, that the messengers to our brain are working well. And that is, basically that's how that bit works. So we've got our hunger and we've got our satiety hormones there. Okay, and then we've got what usually happens with cravings is that we've got these dopamine loops. So actually it's working on a different system. This is where our brain circuits are wired, and they're actually kind of triggered, and neurotransmitters, dopamine is triggered, which is a pleasure and reward pathway. So of course, when we have our cravings, then actually it's sort of almost bypassing that hunger and the satiety hormones, and it's going directly to the brain, and it's it's telling our brain that we need certain foods. It's almost like we're wiring our brain that we need certain foods. And the problem is that when we eat foods that are high in sugar and fat, and the kind of all of these wonderful foods that are designed to be addictive, it fires up this circuit, and that can create more cravings. And the thing with this circuit as well, it's a feedback loop, and it's what we call neuroadaptation. So the more you have, so say if you have sugar, you've got a craving for sugar, the more sugar you have, the more sugar you're going to want, because of that feedback loop. Because with dopamine, you're talking about pleasure and pain. And it's what I've also got here is this book, Dopamine Nation. I don't know if anyone has read it, but I've just recently read it. It's a really interesting book, all about this dopamine pathway. It's by a lady who works in addiction. So and just really how this functions, how we train ourselves to think that these foods are going to help us to feel good. And there is this kind of seesaw of pleasure and pain. So we're working on that circuit of and even if say, for example, if you've got a sugar craving and you love Coca-Cola, if you hear the Coca-Cola can opening, immediately your dopamine loop is already firing, because you're expecting it to be coming. So you might not even have the Coke, you're already thinking of it. So that's our addictive pathway, where we have these cues and then our dopamine loop starts going. So it's really important to know about this loop, and to know that there is this pleasure pain. And it's not only pleasure, dopamine, it's kind of it wires our brain in a way that we think, right, if we're not going to get that sugar, whatever the thing you're craving, you're going to be in pain. So it's almost like we're training ourselves to have that rather than wanting it. So really, really interesting research gone into this book. So I would encourage you to have a look at that. And this idea that neuroadaptation, so the reward system, much like when we're looking at insulin, can become a little bit desensitized, it can become overwhelmed. And it means that then you're going to crave more and more when we go down this loop. So we're going to break it down, but so these different systems that we're working with. We've got the hunger and the satiety hormone, but this is almost working on a different loop, like bypassing the whole hunger and satiety. And usually those highly addictive foods are the ones that are devoid of nutrients, that will end up make you, if it hasn't got the nutrients our body needs, but we're still craving it, then we're going to be we're not going to be having those nutrients. So we need to make sure we're getting those in. So my nutrition tips in order to hack this dopamine loop are really coming from a place of like, look, if we're in that craving mentality, there must be something going on, and actually we're not getting the nutrients that we need. We need to make sure that we are not focused on these highly addictive foods. You know, you can have them sometimes, but certainly overly processed. You know, we know about ultra processed foods, and they are so easy to get and cheap in our country and in the Western world. It can be quite difficult to come off these ultra processed foods, but the way to hack the dopamine loop is to really put in more of these whole foods and fermented foods that will support the brain and the gut health, and they will re-regulate our neurotransmitter function, like our dopamine. And we can actually even eat foods that are rich in tyrosine, which is actually the building blocks of dopamine, so that we can replenish those cells, replenish that pathway. So we can get that through things like almonds, bananas, avocados, or protein. And when we're talking about neurotransmitters and hormones, we always want to think of fats, essential fats, because hormones are made from fat. So it's really important that we get enough of our essential fats in our diet to make sure that we're nourishing our hormones. The other thing is antioxidants to protect and regenerate our brain cells. So antioxidants we get through all of our colorful fruits and vegetables. And that just means that we're going to, if we're on that dopamine loop and it's a craving loop and it's an addictive loop, then we want to make sure that we're getting in enough of the antioxidants to really nourish and support our brain, because that can be a damaging process as we crave more and more. So we need to balance that out with those. And then also encouraging healthy dopamine production with other things, not only food. We're looking at, you know, ways that you naturally feel good, such as exercise. That again creates that circuit, but in a positive way. Sleep, again, helps us to feel good and creates that kind of connection. Also connection with others as well. A hug, actually we get that dopamine release when we get a hug or give someone a hug. When we do something altruistically, when we do something, an act of kindness, we are actually stimulating this dopamine loop in a really positive way. So I hope that's useful. And then we've got those different ways and the different mechanisms of action that are happening within either craving or hunger and satiety. And the other thing is, if you don't know whether it's a craving or a hunger signal, really good way to just check in with yourself the next time. If you feel like you're craving something, or is it craving, is it hunger? Ask yourself, are you hungry? Would you eat, say, this lovely bowl of fruits and vegetables here? I mean, some of them you wouldn't eat raw anyway, but would you eat a bowl of vegetables? You know, are you hungry and would you eat a bowl of vegetables? If it's a yes, then you probably are hungry, and that's great. But if it's a no, if you're actually, maybe you've just had a lovely meal, you know that you're not hungry, you just want that something afterwards, then check in with yourself. You know, is that the dopamine loop firing, or is it hunger? So that's just a really easy thing. Sometimes it's also, am I thirsty? You know, you might need to ask yourself that as well, because quite often these signals can be confused. So I thought I'd just give you a breakdown as well of some of the most common cravings and the potential nutrient needs, because as I said, these cravings usually work in a different way, and it might mean that we're not getting in some of those nutrients, and it might actually mean, I know as a nutritional therapist, we would know that if you were craving sugar, then actually what we would want to look at is making sure that you're getting enough chromium. You get chromium through broccoli, poultry, whole grains, mushrooms. So going down this list, I don't know if any of these, if anyone here is, have any of these particular cravings, then, you know, you're welcome to use the chat function and just let me know which ones you crave. Do you tend to crave sugar, or do you crave chocolate, or do you crave salty foods? You know, which kind of ones do you think you would crave yourself? And of course, things like red meat, if you're actually craving, and this is quite often, you know, you think of cravings when you're pregnant. And I was pregnant with my first child, and I would never go to McDonald's, right? It's just not my thing. But when I was pregnant with Sophia, oh my God, I could not walk past McDonald's. And actually I managed to walk past McDonald's, and then there was a Burger King, and I just couldn't make it past Burger King. I was straight in there, straight on the, you know, burger, because you're craving that red meat and you need the iron. So sometimes it is just about listening to the body and, you know, hearing what it actually needs. So yeah, so interesting. So yeah, that would just give you an idea there of the kind of things you might be lacking in your nutrients. Maybe there's a nutrient need in your body, and the signals, if we listen and we understand, then we know which ones we might need to support. So Moving on, sugar cravings. As I said, about 90% of people crave sugar. What's going on with sugar cravings? Why do we crave sugar? So quite often it is a blood sugar dysregulation. So if anyone is familiar with what we call in our nutrition world, like a blood sugar roller coaster. So, as we talked about with insulin before, when you eat something kind of sugary or carbohydrates, any kind of carbohydrate is going to break down into sugar in the body. It's fine. You get carbohydrates through your fruits and vegetables, and that's fine because it's got the good ratio of fiber in there as well, and all the other vitamins and minerals in order for our, in the right ratio for our body to break down. But when you start looking at refined carbohydrates, then usually it's because the husk has been taken off and any nutrients have been devoid there, and therefore it goes very quickly into your blood sugar as sugar, breaks down into sugar very quickly. So what happens if you have a sugary food, your blood sugars spike very quickly, and then as you see down on the bottom here, you've got a blood sugar roller coaster, which is where your blood sugars go up and down. You crave something sweet, you have something sweet, your blood sugars raise very quickly, and then they drop off very quickly, probably as quickly as they went up, and then you're back down, low blood sugar, and then you're craving again, and you need to go back up on that roller coaster to get the same hit, and then you're on this constant cycle. The problem with that is a stress on the body. It can start up this dopamine loop again. It can release cortisol, dopamine, adrenaline, noradrenaline, and it just sets us on it puts the body in a state of stress. And then of course you have the knock-on effect of usually weight gain as well. If you're on that blood sugar roller coaster for a long time, you can end up putting on weight because your sugar in your blood gets stored as fat if we don't need it, as energy, and then you can end up putting on weight. And usually my area is around the perimenopause and menopause, and in this particular life stage we actually become a lot more insulin resistant naturally. So that's why you might find, if you're in that life stage, that you just can't handle, maybe it's alcohol as well as you used to, maybe it's those sugary sweets and cakes and like all the croissants and things as well as you used to. You might find that you put on weight more quickly, and that is because of this natural state that we're in this particular life stage. Also, poor sleep. If you've had poor sleep, you're going to wake up, you're going to crave sugar, right? Because we need that energy. You're looking for the energy to keep you awake. And of course, it's a quick energy because you're going to get that sugar, but then you're going to always have that knock-on effect afterwards. PMS is another situation where, yes, just before your period, you might really crave chocolate or sugar. And again, it's because of that hormone fluctuation, and it can lead to those cravings for sugar as well. So usually that's what happens with sugar cravings. And then when we're looking at ways to overcome sugar cravings, we want to first of all make sure that we're limiting the sugar in our diet and the processed foods, because quite a lot of the time with processed foods we have these hidden sugars. So make sure you're reading labels and things like that. Processed foods, try to minimize them as much as you can, and then you want to start putting your much more protein and essential fats into your diet. I talk to clients about this all day, every day. Are you getting enough protein? And quite a lot of us just aren't. We're not getting enough protein. We think we're having enough, but actually we're probably not having by anywhere near as much protein as we need. We usually need around a gram per kilo of body weight. So if for a sort of 50 kilo person, you're looking at around 50 to 60, you're looking around 50 to 60 grams of protein in a day. That would be like 3 eggs and mushrooms, avocado in the morning, and then maybe a lunch with fish with some grains, and then an evening meal with, say, fish or meat or grains with more protein on the side. So every time you're eating, you want to be looking at where's the protein. So if anyone wants more information on that, happy to give that. The other thing is that we're looking at stress reduction, just making sure that we are managing the stress or doing what we can to support our stress in our life, because that can put us on this cortisol and this kind of dopamine loop and have us reaching for sugar. And then we also look at the kind of, as we said before, those areas that we might need to support with nutritionally. So you may need chromium and cinnamon by simply adding adding cinnamon to your morning porridge or adding cinnamon onto things will help with that sugar craving, help to curb it. And chromium as well, you can get that through mushrooms, through other food sources, or also as a supplement, which I'll explain in a little while too. Sleep as well, really important, making sure that we're getting good quality sleep. And you can look at your sleep hygiene, making sure that you're supporting your circadian rhythm as much as you can so that you're not waking up in the morning after a bad night's sleep craving that sugar. Okay, so hopefully that's helped with some of the sugar cravings. And then we're working on to salty cravings now and what might be happening there. So quite often with salty cravings, it is connected with stress and it is connected with our adrenals. So I've got here a little, hopefully you can see this. I might need to move this over a little bit. But what we've got here is a diagram from one of my hormone tests, the Dutch test, and this is showing the cortisol and the HPA axis, which is our body's response to stress, how our body responds to stress. So there are messages from the brain. You receive a message, whatever stress is, a perceived threat in our environment. The message comes through to your hypothalamus, to your pituitary, down to your adrenals, in which they release cortisol. And the effect here is that it's helping you to run from a perceived threat, get out of danger. That's the loop that we're working with here when we're talking about stress. We're talking about adrenals and cortisol. So when this loop is in action, it uses up a lot of our electrolytes and it uses up a lot of our that the adrenals usually use a lot of magnesium as well. So we would want to support the adrenals. The thing is, when the adrenals do become tired as well, then it can have an effect on our blood sugar, and that will affect our salt craving. So if your blood sugar is low, you might find that you crave more sugar as well. You might find that you have excessive thirst before you go to bed, or headaches or nausea. These kind of things are good indicators that your HPA axis is slightly dysregulated. So we need to look at how you're responding to stress and ways that we can support that. So if you're going for the salty kind of crisps and things like that, it's probably because your adrenals need that support. Yeah, if you're fatigued, again, PMS, if our hormones are out of balance at that time of month, then again, that can quite often knock our adrenals off as well. So what we can do about salty cravings, we've got, again, protein and essential fats. These are the building blocks of our hormones. So it's really important that we get the building blocks of our adrenals, and helping to support that, helping to make sure that we're sustained, rather than being on this blood sugar roller coaster, which can cause us more stress. Then we also want to up our magnesium and our electrolytes. So electrolytes, if you can get that through either if you have coconut water with a little bit of salt, especially if you're training as well, or in this weather, the hot weather, you might need a little bit of support with your electrolytes. Magnesium as well, you get through leafy greens, through your nuts, your seeds, and you can also look at supporting that with a supplement as well. And then we want to look at stress reduction and supporting our parasympathetic nervous system. Things like yoga, meditation, the non-foodie ways, but ways to help you to manage and cope with stress in your life are really important if you're having those the salty cravings. So our overall tips now, we just got 3 tips that I would say for all cravings. We're always working with our hormones and our neurotransmitters. So we want to make sure that we're providing our bodies with the building blocks for both of these things. The building blocks for any hormone neurotransmitter are going to be protein and essential fats. So here we've got a list of all the different kinds of protein and essential fats that are useful. Things like our avocados, our pulses, nuts and seeds, poultry, fish is wonderful, eggs, soy products. Soy is a little bit controversial, but if you go for the organic soy, then it's full of phytoestrogens, which help with the estrogen hormones, and also it's full of protein and essential fats as well. So really important one there is to make sure you're getting enough of these protein and essential fats. Number 2 is limit sugar and processed foods, because they are going to be sending you on that dopamine loop, and we want to, as much as possible, we want to train our brain away from that dopamine pathway. And so these foods are designed to spike that pathway, we want to encourage ourselves to eat more of those whole foods and limit those sugars and processed foods that are in so much of our diet already. And tip 3 is to prioritize rest. As you learn from both of those sugar or salty cravings, usually the root cause of them is usually either that blood sugar spikes and dips and troughs, peaks and troughs, which can be a stress on the body, and also with our salty cravings having that link with stress. So it's really important that we make sure we prioritize rest, recovery, support ourselves in our lives so that we can naturally make these neurotransmitters and the hormones that we need to require to live our life and thrive as we should. So supplements, my go-to supplements for cravings. So we've got the sugary or the salty cravings here. The sugar craving, this is my favorite supplement I use with a lot of clients, and that is our chromium, cinnamon and lipoic acid blend. As I said, cinnamon helps the immune system, it helps the blood sugar. It helps us to be more sensitive to our insulin, and chromium helps us with those sugar cravings. And then we've got lipoic acid, which again helps us with our just managing that sugar in our body. And then we've also got the calm complex, which is more of a calming blend. It's got magnesium, lemon balm, and that can help if you're feeling this stress. If you're on that HPA axis dysregulation, many of my clients use calm complex to help to balance that out. But hopefully, I mean, with foods is always my first go, so go food first. But if you need extra support, if you find that you just really need help with particular cravings, then these are the main ones I go for. As I always say though, let me know if you're on any medications and I can help to just have a look for any contraindications there. And you can get 10% off if you use my code at Natural Dispensary. And then the other take homes from today, if you haven't already, then I would really recommend you take up the 5-day sugar-free challenge, which is on my website. And occasionally I do them where we actually do it as a live 5-day. So do sign up for that, or come to me, let me know if you'd like to join one, and maybe we can do a live one together in the coming weeks. But it's brilliant. It just, it's tough. It's not easy to go completely sugar-free, but this is designed to help you, giving you really simple recipes and ideas, ways to get off of that dopamine loop and kind of retrain your taste buds, because quite often it only takes about 3 to 5 days for your taste to change. And as soon as you're away from sugar, and then after the 5 days you try sugar again, and you'll see it tastes so much sweeter. So it doesn't take long for our to train our taste buds away. But that might be the easiest step from this webinar to take following that. The other ways that you can work with me, if you guys don't know of me already, then I work with clients one-to-one. We work usually over a period of 12 weeks. And that will be a case of looking at what your food diary, we have a consultation, and we work on a wellness vision. And then the 12 weeks are really about goal setting, and I'm helping clients to get to the goals of where they want to be. And it's fantastic. I mean, so many people, the wellness vision is a wonderful way to work, because you see what you want, and I've got the tools and the know-how to help my clients get to where they want to be with their health and wellness. So there is information there on my packages, but as I say, I can send this to you afterwards if you're interested, and we can have a chat. I would say book a mini health review if you're interested to work together or have any questions, and there's a link there. Other options are group programs. So I often run group programs. The last one was a cleanse, and I think we'll probably do another one in September. And they're wonderful ways to work together in order to change dietary habits. When you work together as a group, it's really, really a wonderful way, easy way to change diet, because it's not always easy when you do it on your own. So that's available to you too. And the last thing is to have and get involved in my newsletter. So get subscribed, and you'll get a newsletter usually once every month. And I'm trying to do these webinars a lot more regularly now, so that hopefully there's a webinar once a month on different tips and tricks around nutrition. So thank you everyone for joining me. I'm just going to stop this share now and stop the recording, and those who are here can let me know how you